Steve Harvey can't speak after poor girl's emotional confession on live TV. The microphone slipped from Steve Harvey's trembling hand, hitting the studio floor with a metallic clang that echoed through the silent Family Feud set. 30 years hosting television couldn't prepare him for what this 15-year-old girl just whispered. The entire studio went dead silent. Even the camera operators froze mid-shot. What she said next would shatter every heart in that room and change Steve Harvey forever. Have you ever witnessed a moment so raw, so unexpected, that it strips away all pretense and leaves only pure human truth? That's exactly what happened on this particular Thursday afternoon in Atlanta. But this isn't just another heartwarming game show story. This is about the moment when America's most confident television host discovered that sometimes the most powerful voices come from the most unlikely places. It was a typical Thursday afternoon at the Family Feud studios in Atlanta, but nothing about this day would remain typical for long. The Johnson family from rural Alabama had driven 12 hours in their weathered pickup truck to be there. They'd saved for months just to afford the gas money, counting every dollar, planning every meal stop. What Steve didn't know was that this family was about to teach him the most powerful lesson of his career. 15-year-old Maya Johnson stood at the edge of her family's podium, wearing the same dress she'd worn to church for the past 2 years. It was a simple navy blue dress that her grandmother had given her before she passed away. Her shoes were clean but clearly worn, resoled twice at the local cobbler. There was something in her eyes that made Steve pause during introductions. Maturity beyond her years, the kind that comes from carrying responsibilities too heavy for young shoulders. "And who's this beautiful young lady?" Steve asked, kneeling down to Maya's level as he always did with younger contestants.
"I'm Maya,"
she said softly, her voice barely reaching the microphones.
"Maya?
"That's a beautiful name. And what do you want to be when you grow up, sweetheart?" Maya hesitated, looking at her family, then back at Steve. "I want to make sure my little brothers never go hungry again." The audience let out a collective ah, thinking it was sweet. But Steve caught something in her tone that made him study her face more carefully. There was pain there, real pain that didn't belong in a teenager's eyes. The game progressed normally for the first 2 rounds. The Johnson family was doing surprisingly well, giving solid answers and working together with the kind of unity that comes from facing hardship as a team. But Steve found himself watching Maya more than usual. Her smiles seemed forced, distracted. She kept glancing toward the exit doors, as if calculating something. During the 3rd round, everything changed in a way that would haunt Steve Harvey for years to come. The question was simple enough. Name something that makes a house feel like home. Maya's older brother had just buzzed in with confidence. Family being together. The board revealed it was the #1 answer. The Johnson family erupted in celebration, high-fiving each other with pure joy. But as Steve prepared to announce their chance to play for points, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. While her entire family celebrated around her, Maya wasn't smiling. Instead, tears were quietly streaming down her face. These weren't tears of joy. These were the tears of someone carrying something too heavy, too painful to bear alone any longer. Steve's entertainment instincts kicked in first. He walked over with his trademark grin, ready to comfort what he assumed was overwhelming emotions. "Hey there, Maya. You okay? This is pretty exciting, right?" But when Maya looked up at him, Steve saw something that stopped him cold. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't joy. It was grief. Deep, adult grief that no 15-year-old should ever have to carry. "Steve," Maya whispered, so quietly the microphones barely picked it up. Her voice carried a desperation that cut through all the studio noise. "Can I tell you something?" The studio audience was still buzzing with energy, unaware of the intimate moment unfolding on stage. Steve glanced at the producers in the booth, then back at Maya. Every instinct told him to keep the show moving, to handle this during the break. Instead, he did something that would define his legacy as more than just a game show host. Steve Harvey set his cards down on the podium and called out to the production booth, "Hold everything. Stop the music." His voice carried an authority that surprised even him. The theme music cut out abruptly. The audience fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed to sense something unprecedented was happening. Steve knelt down in front of Maya, his full attention focused on this teenager who clearly had something important to say. "Maya," he said gently, his voice stripped of all performance. "What do you want to tell me?" The studio was so quiet, you could hear the air conditioning humming. 300 audience members held their breath. The competing family watched with growing concern. Even the producers had stopped giving directions. Maya wiped her eyes and looked directly at Steve. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong in a way that surprised everyone. "We don't have a home anymore, Steve." The words hit the studio like a physical force. Several audience members gasped audibly. Steve's expression changed completely. Maya continued, her voice gaining strength as the truth poured out. "We got evicted 3 weeks ago. We've been living in our car ever since. My mom works 3 jobs, but it's still not enough. My dad got sick and lost his work, and the medical bills." Her voice cracked. "The bills just kept coming, and we couldn't keep up." Steve Harvey, the man who had built a career on quick wit and perfect timing, was completely speechless. But Maya wasn't finished. The dam had broken. "I've been taking care of my little brothers while Mom works. They're only 8 and 10, and they don't understand why we can't go home, why we have to sleep in the truck. Yesterday, Tyler asked me if we were poor, and I didn't know what to say because..." She paused, looking at her family with love and pain intertwined. "Because we are. We really, truly are." The camera operators continued filming, but everyone understood they were witnessing something far more important than entertainment. This was raw humanity, a family fighting to survive with dignity intact. Steve reached into his jacket and pulled out his pocket square, gently wiping the tears from Maya's face. His own eyes were now filled with tears. "Maya," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "how long have you been keeping this secret?" "Since we got selected for the show," she whispered. "I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for us. I didn't want to be the poor family that everyone pities. I just wanted us to have a chance to win something that could help us get back on our feet." Steve stood slowly, his mind racing. He walked to the competing family's podium. "Folks," he said, addressing the Morrison family from Detroit, "I need to ask you something. Would you mind if we change how this game works today? This family needs something more important than points on a board." The Morrison family patriarch didn't hesitate. "Steve, you do whatever that family needs." What happened next would become legendary in game show history. Steve walked back to Maya and did something unprecedented. He took off his suit jacket, the same perfectly tailored jacket he wore for every taping, and wrapped it around Maya's shoulders. "Maya," he said, his voice audible throughout the silent studio, "I want you to keep this jacket, and I want you to know something. You're not just poor, sweetheart. You're rich in ways that matter most. You're rich in love, in family, in courage." He turned to address the entire studio. "This young lady just reminded us what Family Feud is really about. It's not about winning money. It's about family. It's about taking care of each other." The audience was openly crying now. "Here's what we're going to do," Steve announced. "Both families are going to play together for Maya's family. Every point scored, every dollar won. It's all going to help the Johnsons get back on their feet, because that's what families do for each other." The Morrison family immediately crossed the stage to join the Johnsons. Strangers became family in that moment, united by Maya's courage to tell her truth. What followed was pure magic. Both families played as one team, celebrating every correct answer together. Steve abandoned traditional rules, creating questions designed to showcase each family member's strengths. When Maya answered a question about things that give you hope, her response, "believing that tomorrow will be better than today," earned the highest possible score. By the end of that impossible episode, the combined families had won $50,000, but more importantly, they had won something priceless, the reminder that human connection transcends competition. The most powerful moment came at the very end. Steve knelt beside Maya one more time and whispered something the microphones didn't catch. Whatever he said made Maya smile. For the first time that day. Not the polite smile of someone accepting charity, but the genuine smile of a teenager who had just been reminded that she was valued. Later, production would reveal that Steve had given Maya his personal phone number and told her she could call him anytime she needed someone to remind her how strong she was. The episode aired 3 months later and became the most watched Family Feud episode in the show's history. More importantly, it raised over $500,000 in donations for homeless families across America. The Johnson family used their winnings to secure a small apartment. Maya's father received medical treatment and returned to work. Her mother reduced her hours to spend more time with her children. 6 months later, Maya called Steve to tell him she'd been accepted to the University of Alabama with a full scholarship. Her essay topic: "The day I learned that telling your truth is the bravest thing you can do." Today, Maya is studying social work, determined to help other families facing the challenges hers once faced. She still has Steve's jacket, now framed in her dorm room, alongside photos from that life-changing day. Steve Harvey learned something that afternoon that changed how he approaches every show. He learned that sometimes the most important victories happen when you stop playing by the rules and start playing by the heart. The microphone that slipped from his hand was picked up within seconds. But the impact of what happened when America's favorite game show host chose compassion over entertainment continues to ripple through lives, inspiring countless acts of kindness. The suit jacket Steve gave Maya has become legendary among Family Feud staff. New employees are told Maya's story as part of their orientation, not as entertainment, but as a reminder of what television can be at its very best. Steve now keeps an extra pocket square in his jacket for every taping. He's learned to recognize the signs, the forced smiles, the worried glances, the weight of secrets too heavy for young shoulders. And when he sees them, he knows that sometimes the game matters less than the person playing it. Maya's story continues to inspire viewers. The episode has become one of the most shared clips in the show's history. Comments pour in daily from people sharing their own struggles, their own experiences of finding courage to tell their truth. The Johnson family still watches Family Feud together every night, now from their own living room. It's their tradition, their way of remembering that hope sometimes arrives wrapped in a game show host jacket and delivered through the words of a teenage girl brave enough to tell her truth. Steve Harvey continues to host Family Feud, but now he approaches each episode with a deeper understanding. He's learned that every person who steps onto that stage carries a story worth honoring, a truth worth protecting, and a dignity worth preserving. And Maya, she carries with her the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply tell the truth, even when that truth is difficult to say and harder to hear. Her courage didn't just change her family's circumstances, it reminded an entire nation that compassion and human connection are the most important prizes any of us can win. Because sometimes a 15-year-old girl's whispered confession really can change everything, including the way America's most beloved game show host sees his purpose in this world. The game show continues, but now it's powered by something deeper than entertainment. It's powered by the understanding that every person carries a story worth hearing, and sometimes the most important victories are the ones that can't be measured in dollars and cents.